Welcome to another Vintage Fishing Reel service video. In this episode, we have one of my favorites. This is a Zebco Bullet. This particular one is the Zebco Bullet 38, like .38, like it's a caliber type deal. But at any rate, I've never used the 38, but I have used its little brother, the 22, the Zebco Bullet 22, and it is just a dream to fish with. It's like pitching with a modern low profile bait caster or something. I don't know what makes them so smooth and nice, but combination of features, I imagine. But boy, it's a hard reel to leave behind when you go out fishing. But at any rate, there was another one called the 357, Zebco Bullet 357, which had a chrome cover on it. And the 38 was made between 1991 and 1997. I think the 22 came out afterwards, like a year later. So I think the 22 went from 92 to 97, but the 38 at minimum went from 1991 to 1997. Now, the only one of these that I've actually serviced was my 22, and I did that before I started getting into doing these videos, and it's not probably ready to be serviced yet again. And so this one I got was setting outside at a antique mall, and Lord knows how long it had been setting outside. It was on a broken rod, so I don't know what I'm going to find in there, but it's probably very similar to the 22, but just bigger. But I don't remember a thing about what's inside the bullet, even though I've done one before. That's the thing, you know, if you don't do a whole bunch of them, repetition is the key to memory. And then even if I had done a whole bunch of them, you know, you sort of forget, you know, if you do so many different kinds of reels, you forget which one's which and so on. So we'll explore this one together. And to start, I'm just going to take off the cover here, which is a counterclockwise turn. I believe counterclockwise. That's okay. It's just a little tight, not very far, maybe a ½ inch turn, and then yeah, pretty scruddy in there. Not all of that's just from sitting outside. Some of that is lake scum, but pretty scruddy in there. I'm trying to find, so this has got this nylon here. I don't know if, hopefully there's nothing broken off of that. Hopefully that wasn't a line stop. It doesn't look like anything's broken off of it, so I'm not, okay, I think that is the line stop, but I think it snugs up into this area here. So it doesn't stick up like many line stops. It just snugs into that inner circle there. So that looks to be in good shape. Looks like this is one that just twists off with a hold the handle, turn counterclockwise. Has a standard pickup pin with a spring. I don't see any cuts on there. Pickup pin is awful dirty. I don't see any cuts on that, so that's good. Those can go in the parts tray. Oh, I even got a free, I paid $5 for this, by the way, which is quite a good deal. But I got a free dead stink bug with it. And then we've got a E-clip here to remove. Oh, where'd that thing go now? Ah, it stuck to my magnet tray. I should be more careful. Alright, so kind of looks brass, but apparently not because it's magnetic. And then we've got a metal drag washer with 3 ears on the inside, little tiny ears. And then we have this Teflon drag washer. And then we've got, now let's see, typically you're going to want to have and it already is, the drag's already at 0. Depending on what kind of drag, it's important to have that at 0 before you try pulling off of the spool. In this case, it probably wouldn't have mattered much because the pressure comes from up underneath and not inside the spindle, which would make it really hard to get off if you didn't have the drag turned to 0. Somebody looks to have oh, and of course underneath there, oh, okay, they're stuck together. I was going to say, of course, underneath there you have a corresponding Teflon washer, another eared metal washer. But there's some pretty heavy line on there that I'll get off right now. And just like that, lines off the spool, put that in the parts tray. I forgot to mention, they also make at least the 22 and probably the others. I'd have to double check, but they also make the Bullet the 22 and the TS or trigger spin. And I've got mine on one of the Shakespeare telescopic rod. And boy, that's my kind of keep in the truck rig. I mean, you just extend that rod and go, and that's a really nice portable outfit. Drag, let's see. There's the drag right there, and then you've got, I guess it's anti-reverse or something there on the back. But anyway, all right, back to the 38. All right, so you've got a pressure plate here, and I'm guessing that you sort of have to, let's see here. Might have to get the rear off there to get. I don't really want to force that. It looks like I might have to get that drag off of there before I can get that drag pressure plate off there. Here's your bait clicker. Bait clicker. I always say that. Drag clicker. All right. To get the rear cover off, you have to take these screws through the frame here out. And it is scruddy dirty in there. This will be nice to get. It's really tight too. This will be nice to get this cleaned up, run like new. These are just such great little reels. I was looking at a post from Tommy Modisett, who's a expert on Zebcos and other aspects of vintage fishing equipment, and he related that there's a reel made by Swede. I think they may have been associated with Eagle Claw, at least at some point, that looked a lot like this, and they sued Zebco on for infringement, patent infringement, because theirs was very similar. Zebco's Bullet was very similar to the Swede, and apparently they did not win that lawsuit. Ooh, another free insect. I thought that one was alive. It is alive. Gross. Looks like an assassin bug or something. Alright. I'm just trying to see here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the knob, the functioning knob, just slides out of there. And then, let's see here. I think we need to get inside there. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out. I don't want to break anything, but I don't know if it just, maybe you just have to pull up and then back it out of that notch. Yeah, okay, so you just have to winkle that pressure plate off of that drag screw, and then it just goes back on, and there's just a there's a groove on either side of that screw, and that fits in there like that. And these little tabs here at the end sort of bend downward. So in over here on this end, they sort of bend upward. So you don't want to get it on there like that. You might not even be able to get it to fit on there like that if you tried, but just so you know, these little concavities here, concave side up, convex side down, just so you get that back in the proper way. This needs to be cleaned. There's a spring there, and then the actual and this drag screw is independent of this hexagonal piece that fits into the knob, so that screws independently there. So that all needs to be cleaned up. We can now take off the handle. That thing's either cross-threaded or corroded on there. It is a locking nut, but man, what's going on here? I think I'm, well, not turning the whole shaft, but seems like it should have been off of there. I just wonder if that ain't cross-threaded on there. Boy, that's gonna stink if it is. It's just not, it's not coming off. Just seems to be spinning on there. I'm gonna go put some WD on that. It looks like it might be cross-threaded on there. Hang on. Okay, it was just spinning on there. The shaft wasn't moving, but the nut was moving, and basically this is what happens when you leave things out in the elements. So get this handle off of there, and I don't know if you can see, but basically what happened is all of the threads corroded off, and so this is pretty much just all smooth here now, and there may not be enough to even bite on to get that thing back on there, so I might have to find a new gear for it. I'm sure I can rig it up to make it work for now, just something to keep the handle from coming off, but might have to get a new gear for that or something. But at any rate, that's off of there. Handle can go in the parts tray. Now if I remember correctly, okay, so this one has sort of slanted teeth on there, so sometimes that can make it complicated in terms of pulling this straight out. But first thing I want to do is, I think these little bushings, these plastic bushings, pop out of there, and they have little ears on there, one on each side, I think, and those fit inside little notches here. So the fat side of this thing, those ears slide into little notches on there, and that's basically your bushing. So we can pop this other side out as well, and that should allow us to get our main gear and shaft out of there. There is I see a little anti-reverse pawl here, and I'm gonna, before I do anything else, I'm gonna kind of put it back where I found it and show you where it goes. So right in there. So there's a big hole there, but then there's a smaller little hole. It's kind of like a, I don't know, is it a T-shaped hole? But it goes into the smaller notch of that hole, right up, butts up against that plastic there. and the most pointed part of the pawl is towards the top of the reel. So I'm going to pull that pawl out of there. And now, oh, come on. Seriously? Oh, there it comes. Now we can get our axle shaft and associated pinion gear off without having to remove the spring and all that. But that needs cleaned pretty good. Is that a bearing? Looks like that might be a bearing right there. I don't know. I'll have to look at it when I get it cleaned off. So there's some inset gunk and some old grease and all that. But that's basically the end of the teardown. There is a little bushing, a little plastic bushing here. It looks like one shim washer. No, two. Wait a minute. Okay, there's a couple of shim washers, and then a looks like kind of aluminum washer. So on the side of the main gear that goes towards the handle, you've got a metal washer here. You've got a little clear, presumably plastic washer here, and then you've got what looks like another metal shim type washer there, and then you've got this thing, little bushing type deal. So you got 3 washers and a plastic bushing on the main gear shaft. So I'm going to put that in the parts tray, this in the parts tray, this in the parts tray, this in there, these little bushings. And I'm going to take that over to the sink, and I'm going to rinse those parts that are really greasy with WD-40, otherwise known as water displacement formula number 40. And I'm going to get down into all the holes and journals with a Q-tip, and then rinse with Dawn dish soap with toothbrush, and I'll be back just like that. Alright, let's get our parts laid out here. And a little bit of steel wool on this pressure plate here, because it's showing some corrosion that almost looks like it's gotten through the stainless coating, but mostly not. It's cleaning up okay. All right, let's get this back together. So we're going to start off with our what's going on here? I'm pretty sure that's a bearing. Get over here. Can't see. There's a, maybe it's a sealed bearing. So at any rate, we'll get some grease on this pinion gear, kind of pack those teeth good, and then I'm gonna put some oil here, and some oil underneath it, and a little oil where that bearing rides, and then oil here, and install that back into the housing. That kind of snaps in there. Okay, it sort of snaps in place. And then we can put our anti-reverse in place, so that kind of weird short pointed end goes up towards the top of the reel, and that little tab, this is really hard to see with this black reel probably, but okay, so this opening right there, that drops in like that. Hopefully you can see that. And then we can grease the main gear. We can go ahead and set that in right now. Like that, and then we can oil the shafts here, so that when we put these bushings on, they'll be lubricated. Remember to get those little ears to line up with the slots on there. That one's going in awful more tight than it did on the way out. Probably because these gears aren't meshed up right. Let's feed them in sort of about the same time, because this thing isn't meshed up properly here with the pinion gear. It's just binding up. This side's riding higher when I get that on there. Okay, so that one's in. I have a feeling that's going to fix it, and I'm not quite sure why. But it is. Something, I don't know if there was a piece of gunk in one of the teeth, maybe, that was keeping them gears from meshing, but there it is. So I'm going to just sneak a little bit more oil back on there. And work that in. Alright. So now we can reinstall our drag mechanism here. And we're just going to kind of come on. See, hopefully you can see what's going on here. First of all, you have to make sure that those two little grooves are parallel with where this pressure plate's going to go through. Okay, hopefully that didn't get out of view, but you kind of make sure those grooves are parallel with the slot there, and then you tip this up and kind of slide it down, and it'll fit into that notch, and then you're good to go. So now this simply is a hexagonal knob there. Doesn't really matter, you know, all the little dots on there, indicator dots, are the same, so just any old way. And there you've got your, I'm going to go ahead and put some oil on those threads and so on, and some on that to keep it from corroding. But okay, so that's back to clear off now. All right, now we can reattach the rear housing and screw that back in. Okay. Because this spool turns on the spindle there, we should lubricate that. And then this up here that activates the or deactivates the holds the spinner head up and pulls the pin back. We want to make sure to avoid wear on that plastic piece where that thing moves in and out. So putting a little grease there helps there. So I think we're ready for our spool. I don't think there's been any, I don't think this has been sprung, but sometimes if you're worried about them, your little drag clicker, you can bend that up a little bit, but I think this one's fine. It ain't making much of a noise, is it? Well, maybe when I get all of the parts on there. So first we have a eared washer, and just make sure those 3 ears line up on the, there's more than 3 grooves in there, just make sure it lines up on 3 of them. And then your Teflon washer, then your spool. Still not making a very great drag sound, but oh well. Then we have another Teflon washer, then an eared washer, and then a metal eared washer. And then let's just make sure there's a groove all the way around, and there is. We don't have to worry about lining that up. And we should be able to sneak this E-clip back on there without shooting it across the room, hopefully. And then screw our, oops, we've got to lubricate that pivot point and the underside of the pickup pin so that that moves nicely and freely. Screw the spinner head back into place, and that should result in that pickup pin moving outward. And of course, when we push the button, that should pop in. Spinner head is snaps upwards. And when we wind, still think there's some kind of an obstruction in that gear because it's not wanting to. It's bound up. I don't know if there's a piece of debris or a piece of plastic or what, but just when you think you're going to have a quick and easy service, something goes wrong. Now, of course, it's moving freely. Anti-reverse is working. It's moving freely now. So something was causing it to bind. So something is causing that to bind when I put it together. I mean, I can see the gear there. I don't know what it is about assembling the rear cover that's causing that thing to bind. Oh, I think I found the problem. I missed something here. So let's pull this back out. You can't just drop the main gear down randomly. So you've got this anti-reverse pawl on there, but that, what helps engage that is this little tab here. This little tab right here. You see that? That, you got to drop that down. That tab has to fall down into the square notch there on the anti-reverse. So you got to line that up when you drop the main gear down. And I think that was why it was binding up and why it wouldn't wind when you get to a certain spot. So we'll put the bushing back in there. Put the bushing back in here. Come on. And now I think that should solve our problem. Yeah, it's working much better now. So oversight, getting too fast and fancy and not paying attention. All right, I'm gonna line up that the notches on that and try to slink this back down over there like that, and then put this back into its housing and screw it in. Double check, make sure everything's still working. There it is. Okay, let's keep checking to make sure nothing's bound up. And it is not. Now we can screw our spinner head back on. Tighten that down firmly but not terribly tight. Check our button. Check to make sure that the pin is coming out when we push the button, or popping back in and coming out when we wind. Now we're back in business. So to return, well, let's try this, see if we can do anything with this totally boogered up shaft and nut here. Let's see if we can at least get it on for now. I doubt it. It's just all boogered up, but maybe we can get it on for now. No, I mean, it's pretty much just there's just no threads left. I'm not gonna get that down on there. Okay, believe it or not, I hit that with a hammer, got it past those bad threads, and there's just enough of a couple good threads down at the base that I've got that on there tight. So I'm going to be able to get by with that until I need to service it again. So the silver dots there go on the side of the logo, so you don't want it on like that, you want it on like that. There's a mark here where the tabs are, So just line that up with the holes there. Make yourself a clockwise turn. Put yourself some oil. I've already cleaned these out a bit with WD-40. So now I'm going to lubricate those. Look at that. We'll clean this up. And if I wanted to get real fancy, I'd get out my auto polish. You know, my 3M series of rubbing compound and then machine polish. And I could get that, all those little scratches and scuffs, like a mirror finish. But it's not too bad as it is. But boy, these are smooth reels. So there you have the Zebco Bullet 38. Made between 1991 and 1997. And like I said, if you've never used a bullet, get you one. They're pretty popular, even though they don't make them anymore. But get you one and try it out and see if you agree that they're just a smooth reel and a blast to fish. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.